clubs, or even as inner wheel clubs, we try to understand which communities we are going in and which kind of things we are going to do in those communities. So I don't know if we can have some people putting up their hands or perhaps sharing in the chat room. I want to understand what people understand by the word need. The topic that I was asked to talk about is needs assessment. And then in there there are about three very important words. One is project, and then two is success. Needs assessment essential for successful project delivery. So could we have some responses regarding what a need is? Any volunteers? Okay, I don't seem to see any answers in the chat. I don't see any hands up. Okay, I see someone here. Yes, please, Sam. I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
There's a hand of Be International.
Yes,
Thank you,
Sam,
Dr.
could you tell us what a need is?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Akeke. I think a need is something we can't really live without, or something that is very essential for us to live, to survive, and to have a good life or good health.
Okay, thank you very much. Something we can't live without. Someone in the chat room says a need is essential for life, and with it, life becomes hard to cope with. Okay, so what you're all saying is that a need is something we can't live without. The second question that we could go for is, who defines a need? Or how do we confirm that a need is indeed a need? Because remember, we're talking about a need in the community. So let me say, if people are organizing a Rotary Family Health Day, if people are organizing to take a water tank somewhere, we know that water is essential for life. But is it true that in every community, people are thinking that way? How is it possible that in one community, people would not have a clean water source, but they would keep living like life is normal? How is it possible that people without a sanitary facility or a toilet will keep living like life is normal? So that's really just to tickle your minds and show us that, essential for life needs to be qualified. We can go into communities because we think that, a toilet, clean water, a hospital, or a school are very important aspects of life. But as long as the people who have those problems don't think they are problems or don't think they are needs, then you cannot really solve them for them. You perhaps give them some projects, but they will never appreciate them. So that's why it's important to understand what a need is in the perspective of the person you're trying to help. So question 2, again, quickly, could we have someone telling us how we confirm that a need is a need? I guess that could be very important for our discussion today, just before I rush through the slides. How do we confirm that a need is a need? Yes, Ruth, please proceed.
I think we confirm the need from the people themselves, the people who feel the need. It is those people to identify what is needed for them, because what might constitute a need to me might not constitute a need to them. So those guys, or the people you are going to deal with, or the beneficiaries, should be the ones to identify what actually they need.
Perfect. I can't even add a thing to it. You've done really well, Ruth. So the third question, what is a project? This is a very important question to me, because every time clubs invite me to support them on projects, but many times what they refer to as projects are actually not projects. So could someone quickly perhaps tell us what a project is? Do we have any projects people on the call, or clubs that have run some projects? I don't know if I could ask some people on the call. Barbara?
I can go,
yes.
go on?
Yep. Yes, Dorothy.
Yes. Yeah. A project is an activity that you do within a time frame and is targeting to to provide a service towards some identified activity.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Dorothy. And I would pick about 3 things. Number 1, it's an activity with a time frame. Many people call a one-off Rotary Family Health Day activity as they call it a project. I don't know if it would qualify. And then it has goals that it's trying to achieve, thirdly, in the community or for some group of people. And then finally, if we talk of successful delivery projects, then we need to understand what we mean by success. So how do we know that we are successful? Perhaps we can have people typing just to save time. How do we know that we're actually being successful? I see that President of Presidents, Jackie, said that when someone repeatedly mentions a problem to you, it means that it's their priority. So once we go in and start implementing projects, how do we know that we're actually being successful? And we're trying to see how that links into community needs assessment. Because when we go into the community, we know what the community needs. We go in and conduct some projects. So how do we know that we're actually being successful? Okay, someone says implementing on time, solve the existing problem. When we meet the desired objectives, impact set from the beginning of project goals are met. Okay, perfect. So ladies and gentlemen, I could actually stop here because we have actually made the case for why we should even think about a community needs assessment. And I'm quite happy that the people that are on the call today know a thing or 2 or 3 about why we should actually be concerned about how we go into communities. I'm going to start off with something very important. The district governor of 9213, I know that we have 9214 and other districts on the call, started something called the Community Service Committee. And currently, we have been working, in Rotary, you start serving before your term starts. And we've been working for the last couple of months. Currently, we have sent out a survey to clubs. And the reason is to understand what clubs have been doing and what they intend to do. But most importantly, to understand where they are serving and what they are doing there, and if there's any impact they can talk about. So I'd ask you to speak to your presidents so that they can send us the information that we have requested for. But really, this is to understand what clubs are doing, to know how are they doing it? Is there a need for collaboration? Is there a need for support? And how can we project this in the media and other places so that people can know what Rotary is all about? People need to understand that Rotary is not just about Bimeza and swallowships. And this team has very passionate area of focus ambassadors led by a chair. These areas of focus ambassadors are passionate about the areas of focus, like we're going to see them on the next slide. So if you need any support in terms of how to initiate projects in any area of focus or how to engage the community in any area of focus, from initiation to implementation, please talk to us. But on that slide before, the one of area of focus, I like the picture of the first Rotary project. This picture depicts, I don't know if you can all imagine the city of Chicago in 1905, that Rotarians could come up to put up a public toilet. And I keep asking Rotarians in our country, do we think that, for example, a public toilet is a need in any community in our country? And why do we think that we have perhaps not come up with many public toilets, even if it's just to emulate the foundation of Rotary or just to celebrate so many years since the initiation of Rotary activities? But why do we think we have not done these projects? Is it because they are not needed? Is it because they are not priorities of communities? But that's just food for thought for you. So the areas of focus, we know that they're the ones that guide us in conducting our in conducting our activities in the community. I'll not really go much about them because we know them, but it's important for you to know that for the guests on the call, and there may be some guests on the call, that we offer our impact through those 7 areas of focus. I will not really go much through them today. So what is a community needs assessment? We really started off very well. You all talked about what a need, what a need is, and why we should even be bothered. So at the center of a community needs assessment, or even community assessment, like you may call it, is the community. You don't go to Zirovwe or to Arua or Kalangala and tell them, you know what, we are giving you a hospital. You may give them a very beautiful hospital. I don't know if hospitals can be beautiful, or a very nice school, but it will never create an impact in the community. Perhaps the community doesn't even understand why they should use it. A needs assessment or community assessment examines the local strength and weaknesses, needs and assets. This is important because many times people go into communities just to look out for the problems. But I keep telling people that, you know, a community can contribute a lot to a project. They cannot just be recipients. They can contribute land, they can contribute work, they can contribute ideas. So when you go into a community, do not just look out for the problems. They don't have water, they don't have a school, they don't have money. Look at the things that they have. Maybe they have a strong culture. Perhaps they have a big population that can be used to do something. So look out for what they have on the positive side and on the negative side. Basically, a SWOT analysis of the community. This will help you to identify what we can do with what you can do with that community. It doesn't have to be a project. Like we said, a project has a time frame. Not everything we do in the community is a project. Let us not reduce our participation in communities just to projects. We can go into communities and do very many things with them that are not necessarily projects. And I keep telling people that a Rotary Family Health Day activity, for example, is a one-day event, but it can be the start to community entry, the start to community needs assessment, the start to project implementation. Something that will help you know that this facility can, for example, run a cancer screening activity, can run a blood donation activity. So that's really the gist. Let's not just look out for the problems. And importantly, a community assessment, like we said, starts with the community. And I can't really overemphasize this. When you go into the community, you don't go in with solutions, you go in with ideas. So working with the community, able to identify a need and develop a solution that works for that community. It's not one size fits all. What works in Bukedia may not work in Kasese. And you need to base this on the strength, not just the problems, but on the strength of the community, and align it with the local values and culture. Very important. When we are writing global grants, many times they ask us, you know, this equipment that you're buying, will it align with the interests of the community? Will it align with the culture in the community, with the knowledge gaps, and all things along those lines? It's very important to start and have the community in mind as you begin. Why? It helps you to have a very smooth start and a very smooth future, if we could say that. But it also helps the community to own whatever it is that you're discussing. Usually when you talk of influencers, we only think of TikTok and Facebook, but communities have influencers. And I know today that's not the focus of the presentation, but when you read about projects within the Rotary platforms, you'll find that there are different types of people in communities. There are people who have different roles in the community. There are people who help you to enter the community, help you to mobilize people in the community, help you to get buy-in in the community, or help you to implement the projects. Currently, the Rotary Club of Kampala South is implementing projects in Chaka-2 refugee settlement. And this is in partnership with the Rotary Club of Kabarole. Even when we are Rotarians, there's a lot we can't do in the Chaka-2 refugee community because these people have their way of working, they have their way of doing things. So it's very hard for us to plant any kind of corporate governance or any kind of systems onto them because they know how they work, but what we have is a shared goal, a shared vision. And currently we are running a water project there, putting up 100,000 liter water tank, putting up water harvesting tanks in schools and hospitals. And then recently we launched a solid waste management project there. But you know, if you walk through the streets and waste is all over the road, it's a problem. But you know, you need to talk to these people and show them or understand how you're going to get this waste off the street and then how you're going to recycle it later. It's very important for the community to understand that this is the project and this is going to be our role in this project going forward. Once you've really got settled in, it's then important to provide training. People need to understand, again, at the center of the community is the people. People need to understand who you are, why you're going to them, why not any other area. Some people tend to think, or some Rotarians tend to think that, this big project is a project the community would really appreciate so much. So we don't need to have to do any convincing or any engagement. You will be shocked that the project you think is really marvelous and expensive and all that, they will deliver nothing. And I keep saying that project success is not just about the money, it is about the people. So you can invest $1,200,000, but as long as the people are not with you or do not understand what you're trying to do and what the end point is, you will not achieve much. I started off asking us how we measure success, and that's important because all we are going to do must be against some kind of targets. And I keep telling people that project assessment, now away from the needs assessment, is right from before you initiate the project until so many years after the project. So you measure your success even before you start the project. And what I mean by this, when you go into the community, you have some kind of idea. Let me say as a project service director, or as a president, or as a member of the club, or as a member of the community. So you need to have some kind of measure right from the beginning. What's the idea? What is the problem? Why this community? Who am I going to work with? And then you're able to develop some kind of process and things that you assess at every point of the project life cycle. Today, we're not going to go so much into the project's life cycle, but yes, it's important to know that you measure your success at every point. You collect data at every point. You engage people at every point. Do not run a project for 2 years, 5 years, when you don't know how it started, you don't know what you measure, you don't know how to see that you're successful or not. So what do these needs assessments do now that we know that they're important? This is really just revision from what we've already said, but it helps us to appreciate the community, to understand how communities behave, and also appreciate that communities are different. It helps us to make key decisions. At times, you really just have to give up on this community. Not that you let it die with its problems, but you either drop what you are suggesting for them, or come back in another way, or engage another partner. It's not true that Rotary is supposed to solve problems in all places. Sometimes we need to just withdraw or engage other people to do what we are proposing to do in those communities, because those partners will work better or easier with those communities. But it also helps us to be friends and true partners in these communities, not rich guys that are taking projects into the community. Many times when you go into communities and ask them, what are your problems? Say in a health facility, they'll send you a list of 200 drugs, budget of about 25 million. Like you've become Minister of Health, or like you've become government, because that's how they look at you. So how do you develop a relationship so that people know that, you're in this together? You're not here because you have big money or because you really want to do it all by yourself, but you just have a big heart and you want to contribute a thing to the community. Encouraging community members to participate can't be overemphasized, very important, because this helps us to build trust, have the community committing, and then ensure that we're going to be sustainable. All these words can actually form presentations in themselves: building trust in the community, having what community commitment means in terms of projects assessment and success, and then sustainability. All those are very big topics in themselves. And I really urge us to run some topics on the Rotary Learning Center and learn what those things mean. So just quickly before we conclude, we know what a community assessment is, we know why we should do it, we know how we do it. So what tools can we use as we do it? What are the things, perhaps when people talk of tools, people think of, I think, pangas or machetes, but no, tools are the things that you can use, like the how. When we talk of engaging the community, when we talk of getting their ideas, getting their input, understanding their strength, assets, and needs. What items can we use, or what practices or activities can we use? So the commonest is community meetings. And community meetings can be as small as meeting just one person to meeting the whole community. Recently, I was supporting the Rotary Club of Matuga to offer some care or support to a local health facility. And we just met this lady that has been running this facility for the last 25 years. And we later realized that, this facility has some people who have been supporting it from the US. And, the meetings kept on changing. Partners in the US, local people. Sorry, the person who has been running the clinic. And later on, we met the people that have used the clinic. Then the local leaders, counselors coming in, really speaking with a lot of fire. And all those meetings give us one thing or another about the community, about this particular proposed project, and give us an idea of how easy or hard it may be for us to implement it. We can also run surveys. This goes back to the kind of community that we are doing. And these surveys, like for example, the community service team of District 9213 is running a survey within Rotary clubs. And the Rotary clubs are our community. We want to know what are the Rotary clubs and Rotaract clubs doing in the communities, and how are they doing it? Who are they doing it with? Which projects can we do together? How can they be supported? How can we promote our image, public image? And then interviews. This could be one-on-one interviews or with a number of people, but I know we all know what interviews are. Focus groups, many times when we go into communities, like I said, we can identify key people and have specific defined conversations with them. We can there's something they call an asset inventory. Inventory is really just a list of things that someone has, either in their custody, or in their possession, or in their ownership. So many times when people tell us what they have and what they don't have, this I keep saying, especially when it comes to Rotary Family Health Days, when people go into communities and they run a family health activity at a playground or at a school, they miss a very big opportunity to see if this community has a health facility and how this health facility is running, what kind of support it needs. But if you went into this health facility and you know which kind of health workers they have, which kind of equipment they have, which kind of services they offer, you're able to know how you can actually support them in a bigger way, in a more sustainable way, and in a more impactful way. And then community mapping. This is really more or less as clear as it can sound. You get into this community and know who lives where, what do they have, what problems do they have, what assets do they have, like we already said. And then later on see what you can do with that community. Even the same community may have different needs in different parts of the community. So finally, as we go into conclusion, the assessment tips, these are just a few tips that we think we can use, but I know many of you can actually propose some tips on the chat. When you go into the community, be as open can be. In fact, be naked. When you go in, you don't go in, this is what we want, this is what we have brought for you, please take it. No, be open to new ideas and opinions. And then when you go into community, have a strategy of community entry. It's not like everyone will go in and engage a community. If you're going to do a project in Karamoja, and these people want someone who can speak to them in their local language, someone who tends to understand who they are, someone who doesn't really just say certain things about them, you may be very particular about who goes to that community. Or if you go to a community where people like people to show up some way or somehow, maybe dressed up in their culture wear, you need to be specific and particular. And then include people from underrepresented or marginalized groups. When you engage into community assessments or deliberations and engagement, you need to be very particular and very specific in how you engage people. Do not engage the wrong people in the community, because this may have a bearing on how your project may end up. I've had people who say that, those guys came to our community, but we don't know who they spoke to. We don't know who they're engaging with, but we shall wait for them when they bring the project. And people will fail it. We've had cases where projects have been vandalized or damaged. And very importantly, consider yourself an outsider. do not make promises about a project before your final decision. And I want to end, President, with an example. The picture you see on your screens is for the Rotary Dialysis Center. This is a project that is being run or implemented by Mengo Hospital in partnership with the Rotary Club of Kampala South and many other partners. We wrote this project concept or idea in 2019. And that's the first time that we met the team at Mengo Hospital, which is in this sense was our community, to tell them that, you know what, we are bringing this project. Oh, sorry, not we are bringing this project, but to ask them, is this something that you think you may need? Because, you know, like I said, communities are different. A community like Mengo Hospital is not perhaps the same as a community where you're going to take some kind of project around a school, around a hospital, around a borehole. Because this one was a bit specific. We knew that they didn't have a dialysis center, and we're trying to understand if it's something they would actually want to talk about and how they would want it done. But the point I'm making here is, number one, the community is different. But number two, when we went in, Mengo Hospital had to show us if it's something they needed and how they needed it and what they were committing to this particular project. But it was only until 2022, because remember we got COVID in there, and then we lost partners, and then the matching of global grants changed, so we lost some money there. But the project was only approved in 2022, which is almost 3 years later. Why I say this, if you go into a community and they're all excited this is coming, and let me say it's 17th or 18th of July, you need to understand and engage this community in a way that, you know, this project may not actually come tomorrow, Friday or Saturday, and manage their expectations, manage their anxiety and excitement, so that you know that a project may take time. Because remember, we said a project is a time frame. You want to go into the community and understand what they have, what they don't have, engage partners, find resources and funds, and that may take some time. It's very important to manage community expectations and anxiety so that you're able to achieve your success in the easiest of ways and the smoothest of ways. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I've made some sense, and I hope we are going to employ these skills and tips to conduct more successful projects. I've shared some tips for you or some resources that you can use, and we shall be waiting to support you in all aspects. Thank you very much.
Wow. This was awesome. This was awesome. Thank you, Dr. Keke, as I will always phone record you. And a daybreaker. I would like to give, we have a few minutes to the close of this meeting about 13. I don't know the Bade group leader, Rotarian Edward Mugerwa, if we can have these burning questions, at least burning questions, done within the next 8 minutes, or else we'll push this to the beyond, to the Chimeza after the fellowship. I really want to have this fellowship done, because this presentation, I know when it opens up to engagement, it will be really taking us a lot of time. Over to you, Rotary and Edward Mugerwa, being mindful that we have to do this within the time frame that we have of 1 hour, and then we'll request maybe Dr. Richard Karunji to give us some more minutes in Chimeza so that members can have more engagement and interaction with him. And as far as this topic, very good topic, is concerned. Over to you, AP Edward.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Doctor, for such a rich presentation. Very relevant, especially at the start of the Rotary year. I think that gives us a lot of mileage as we enter into our project initiatives. I would like to welcome questions. I will take two to three questions, President, just to manage time. So I welcome those who can quickly raise up their hands or hit the mic, the Chichiga way, and then we shall get moving. Yes, let me start with Magic President at Haire. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Good morning, and thank you for the insightful presentation. Mine is on political interference, and I had posted it in the chat box. How do we manage political interference? We've had sometimes politicians coming up and wanting to take credit for the work that we are doing in communities. For example, the Nyachijumba project in Kabale, implemented by Rotaract Kampala South. So how do we come in to ensure that we mitigate those uncertainties?
Thank you. Let's have one more question or two more questions. Then I'll ask the good doctor to respond. All right. As we wait for that question, doctor, also take down this one. What's the difference between a needs assessment and requirements development? Looks like you really addressed this question very well. There are not many, I don't see any more questions in the chat room. So may I request that you take on those two, and then President, you can take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, PP Mugera. Political interference, many times, one of the things that I keep telling Rotarians, especially the leaders, many times as Rotary, we say that we are apolitical. And many times, again, when we go into communities, some communities have political challenges. And we are urged to stay away or to stay very clear of these political challenges. But when you look at the reality of life, people say that, if you want to avoid politics, then you're avoiding how things are going to happen in your life, because politics define how we live. Politics defines what we shall have and what we won't have. Why I'm saying this, we're not supposed to stay away from politicians as Rotarians. And it doesn't mean that as Rotarians, we shouldn't engage in conversations with politics or get engaged or interested about or in the political conversations in the communities. Because if we ignore what is happening in the political sense in the community, then it will affect us in that way. Using the example of the Nyachijumba project, which is run by the Rotaract Club of Kampala South, these guys ran the project for almost 5 or 6 years. They set up classroom blocks, and supported the community with a new school. And they had partners from all over the world. And when this politician comes in, just like the true nature of politicians, they say, you know what, I've brought you a school in your community. This only becomes a problem if the Rotary Club of Kampala South has not been engaging with the local community. If you know the community and the community knows you really well, they will always be by your side. And that's what politics is all about. I know we call ourselves apolitical, but as we do things in our community, we are getting friends and supporters onto our side. Not because we want to stand for any position, but when we show up, there are people in the community that will say, I know Rotary can't do that. Or I know Rotary gave us this. Or Rotary, that cannot be this so-and-so's project. It's for Rotary. But if you went with your mics and recorders in Nyachijumba and you ask people who did this project, if you're not able to get the answers that you expect from them, then it means perhaps as Rotary and Rotaract, we didn't do enough in terms of community entry and community engagement. And remember, we said that when we are applying for project grants, for example, a community needs assessment is only as useful over a period of time. You don't do the same you don't do one assessment today and use it 6 years later. You need to keep revisiting the community. You need to keep engaging the community and working on your assessment. So my answer to you is political interference perhaps cannot be done away with, but we can solve it through engaging with politicians themselves and political leaders right at the beginning, but also ensuring that the community understands who we are, why we are with them, and what we're trying to do with them. So that at a snap of a finger, even the youngest or the least educated person of that community can know that Agamazi Banaro Taribagaleta, or they can know that this hospital, this blood bank, for example, look at the blood bank in Uganda, constructed by Rotarians. But how many people in this country, if you stood by Kampala Road and asked 10 people, how many can know that the blood bank is by Rotarians? So it goes back to public image, and that's why we're asking you clubs to share what you're doing, so that together we can talk to people, we can engage communities and show them what we are doing. Otherwise, tomorrow some politician will say, I built the cancer center, I built the blood bank, and then it will be us on the flat foot trying to explain that it's actually us who did it. And then finally, when it comes to what a community's assessment is vis-a-vis requirements, we need to, perhaps the next time we shall talk about the project's life cycle. I've already said that a project starts before it starts. Before you go into a community, you know which kind of community you're going to. And then when you go into this community, you even learn it better. And together you come up with project activities. The community's assessment is really the point of entry and engagement of the community all along the life cycle of the project. Like I said, we measure success all along the project, and we engage with the community all along the project. There is no time when we say that, we finished our assessment and it's no longer done. And perhaps the requirements are the things that we need into the initiation of the project or into the implementation of the project. Because remember, sometimes before you write a project or run it, sometimes there are things you need to do with that community to engage them and get a buy-in. I don't know if it makes sense, but for the purpose of today's conversation, let's know that the community is at the center. Let's know that it's an opportunity for us as Rotary and Rotary clubs to engage our members through community engagement for the success and sustainability of our projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Dr. Keke, and thank you for sharing the gift of knowledge. It's always important to share your God-given gifts, and we are so blessed to have you this morning, Dr. Keke. And that brings me to thinking of another engagement that we should have. Now that we have heard about the needs assessment, and I'm sure all the presidents and the members of Rotary that are on call this morning have picked up a thing or two. And by this presentation, our projects team will straight away start running with this. And I am sure Rotarian Lynn is in and will have an engagement with her team to ensure that we can start off something. And perhaps next we shall have a presentation on the project's life cycle so that we can have all this equation complete for the better and good of Rotary and our communities. At this moment, I would
Your audio has faded, Mr. President.
Yeah. May I call on Rotarian Irene to give a befitting vote of thanks to our guest speaker this morning, Dr. Keke. Rotarian Irene, over to you.
Before that, President, can I make a request? There is overwhelming, there's a lot of requests in the chat room where people are asking for the slides. Could you kindly address that? Thank you.
Come again on that.
So many people asking for the copy of the presentations.
Please, you have
in the chat room.
You have the copy of the presentation.
Yeah, so find a way of sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, President, for the opportunity. Good morning, friends. On behalf of Kampala Daybreak, I extend a really hearty vote of thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Richard, who has spared time from his busy schedule to grace this meeting. Today, we've had an opportunity to hear his thoughts about a successful needs assessment, and this will surely be going to guide us in our future projects. Dr. Richard, thank you so much for such an informative presentation. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Irene, Super Irene, as we want to call you. Knowledge shared is power multiplied. Thank you again, Dr. Keke. Now at this point, may I invite the Sergeant at Arms to give us the statistics as we wind up this fellowship.
Thank you, President. I hope I'm loud and clear. Good morning to our Rotarians, Rotaractors, and our guests on call this morning. My name is Faith Tushave, and on behalf of our president, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. At peak, we had 132 people on call. We had 35 Rotary clubs present and 3 Rotaract clubs. I have posted in our chat. In case I have missed out on your club, apologies, kindly register with us and I will take note. I would also like to extend our gratitude to our DGE, Geoffrey Chitakule. Thank you for joining us every Thursday morning. We are so grateful. President, over to you.
Thank you, our Sergeant at Arms, and for those recognitions, the district leaders, our DGE, Geoffrey Chitakure, you're always most welcome at Kampala Daybreak. My AG, Patrick Lassou, you're most welcome, always feel at home. My fellow Magic presidents, it is always an honor and pleasure to host you at Kampala Daybreak. We'll have our meetings Saturdays morning, and please make a date with us and always be with us. With that, friends, we come to the end of our fellowship this morning at exactly 8. I would like to call our four for Kampala Daybreak, Rotarian Fiona Sima, to give us the final toast as we conclude this fellowship.
Thank you so much, my president, and thank you so much, friends, for this insightful presentation, timely and engaging. I would like to propose a toast to Rotary International.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
From me, President Rotarian Amanya of Kampala Daybreak, and the Bade Group leader and the team, Rotarian Edward Mugerwa, my amazing president, we say, go in peace to love and serve.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, President Amanya.
That is what they call the ending blessing. Amina.
President Amanya.
So much, President Amanya.
Perfect timekeeping. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, President. Who is going to share those presentations to the people who have given their addresses in the chat room?
The presentations, please,
Frederick, of course.
I'll put the presentation in the president's platform of the Magic Presidents and all other platforms that we have access to.
President, just to mention that the presentation, the live presentation is also available on YouTube, and I've shared the YouTube link.
I think that's where people should download it from.
Rotarian Ruth, whoever has provided an email address in the chat section has already received the presentation as I speak.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Many thanks, Frederick.
PP Frederick, I already thanked you for the efficiency. God bless your heart.
Amazing, Frederick.
Oh, my president, Jackie of Kampala East. Always blessed to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you too for having us.
Yes, always welcome, Jackie.
Thank you, President Amanya.
I have a question that I'd like to ask in the Chimeza.
The Chimeza is open and the recording has stopped. So therefore, the next conversation is unessential.
All right.
Should the Rotary Club have several needs assessments of several communities and keep these as records that can be used when opportunities arise? I am asking for a very good reason.
Yes, and that's a very good question. And perhaps one thing we didn't talk about was how clubs run annually. In some clubs, it's really about the president. So the president comes in and they have a new focus. Some clubs are not really strong enough to have a 5-year, 3-year, 6-year vision. So what that causes that most of the things that are done in this Rotary year, if you may call it that, may be tabled or shelved when it comes to the new year. So it depends on many times it depends on the president or the new leadership. What that causes, you may find that a club went to community X, they engaged with people, they came up with some kind of project ideas, and then they didn't go back because the president now has a focus on another community Y. But like I said, it's really very bad to go into communities and raise hopes of the people, and then you never go back, or you never really give them what you said you'd give them. When you engage a community, you must be very clear, or you must give them some kind of idea on what you're going to give them and when you will give it. There's a particular community we went to and we told them, want to adopt this community, want to do water, want to do that. That's really about 7 years ago. And we thought that we were going to do a global grant. So we go into global grant application, which takes usually a couple of months. We tried to get partners for a project which was worth over $200,000, and we failed. So we go back into the community and tell them, we failed to get this, but could we start with something small, maybe non-global grant at $10,000? And that was done. Or we did some kind of activities at the health facility without offering the entire big thing. So to answer your question, if the club is really willing to be a service club, you can have different assessments, but not just for the sake of assessing, for the sake of really going in, understanding challenges, and be clear with the community. Are you going to work with them on anything? Or are you just assessing and you feel you can't really do that project? And also give them some kind of idea on when you come back. And going back doesn't mean that you're going back with a project. Going back may mean that, when we came here, we told you we are going to do a water tank, but we have really failed to raise money. Pardon us, but if we get the money, we shall come back next time. The issue is, how do you keep engaging with them? And like I said, community assessments, usually after 12 months, need to be redone because the problems may have changed. The problem may have been solved by other partners. It's really a living document. You have to keep working on it. Thank you.
Dr. Kalunji, maybe I could give some kind of context of why I'm asking this question. I was involved in an initiative in which we were to receive hospital equipment from the United States, from Houston, Texas. And I had been in touch with a Ugandan friend, and I simply told him, we need hospital equipment. And I knew that hospitals and other medical facilities do routinely remove high quality equipment and put it into storage just because there is newer equipment coming on the market, which they normally use to replace what has already been in use, which by Ugandan standards would actually be very, very new equipment. And I think there was guilt on our side that we never presented the list of the things we need. We simply said hospital equipment. And then one afternoon, I got a call from the friend in Houston, and he said, the Ugandan community in Houston have said they have equipment, but you must take this equipment now. And by now, he was meaning we must respond, we must start the process. And to cut that story short, is that we've ended up actually not getting the equipment because the way we function as a Rotary Club is that we follow a process, and that process was not fast enough to enable us to get the equipment from Houston, Texas. I wanted to give you that background as a context so that you can advise us on what we could have done better to enable us, because the needs are there. We know the needs are there. Almost every medical center, almost every hospital in Uganda has needs. And we know that the equipment is out there. So what could we have done better as a club to make sure that we actually secure this donation of equipment? Thank you.
Yes, John, I think I have an idea which kind of donors you're talking about. Recently, I was contacted by a group of people, again from Houston, Texas, and they had a donation. All they needed is perhaps a group to fund the transportation of that equipment. And of course, many times churches, Rotary clubs come very easy in the heads of people as true partners in community service. And usually that kind of thing has two challenges. Number one, like, for example, our Rotary Dialysis Center, they're what they call presumed needs or assumed needs, because everyone from the outside can see that this community needs a water tank, this community needs a school. And in the same way, we know that our communities need equipment. But it's very important to define which equipment and how does it work. How does that equipment come into the country? How does it get into the community? How is the community going to manage it? Because if you understand what the equipment is on the other side, you need to understand which community and what will their role be going forward. If you're going to, let me give you an example. If you have a facility, I know that the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak is big on early child development centers, but the Rotary Club of Kampala South, for example, has a facility in Chikandwa, Mukono, and it is a health center 3, which we are now trying to equip. For the last 10 years, we've been trying to support it to run and make it sustainable or independent. So right now, if we get, say, an offer for theater equipment, and within our service projects docket in the club, and later the board, and later club assembly, we tell ourselves that, you know what, this is something we can actually do as the club. So it goes back to the interest of the club and also having a perfect fit for that donation, preferably in a community that you've already been working with. Because even if you got ultrasound scan machines from somewhere, you don't just go planting them into places where you've never engaged with those people. You don't know how they operate. You don't know how they work. You don't know anyone in there. You may
They
not
won't even
really
maintain them.
Yeah. So, but if you have that kind of situation, like in our case, the other point now becomes money. Many times there are about 3 ways that you can fund Rotary projects. Number one is direct funding, where members of the club mobilize money through themselves or through their organizations, and they say, what do you need? $20,000. Okay, let's mobilize it. Let's bring in that equipment. The other one is you can get money from a district through district grants. Not very popular in our country because we don't have that much money in our district coffers. But it's another thing. You can apply for $20,000. Say, we have this community that has urgent need for this equipment, and so is offering this equipment. Could you give us $20,000 to ship it in? The other one is a global grant, but a global grant is going to take you more than 6 months. And I don't know what kind of patience those guys in Houston could have, because the one who contacted me was showing me that there's some kind of deadline. They need to have come in by this time. And that doesn't really work well with engaging Rotary clubs and having things move in a particular way. So I guess the learning from this is, it doesn't mean that clubs benefit from such initiatives because they have a waiting needs assessment, awaiting a donation. No, it's because these clubs are very active in the community, and off-head they can quickly think of a facility that they can work with. Sometimes a facility that can even contribute something financial. Like I know the Rotary Club of Kampala, Kololo Kampala, I get confused with the name, has been working with a facility in Mpererwe. They have given them an ambulance. I think they have given them some other stuff. If the Rotary Club of Kololo went to that facility and told them, there's this coming, how can we work together? It becomes much easier for them because they have history working together, and they have assessed and worked and engaged with these guys for very many times, as opposed to the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak that has never done any project with any health facility, and they want to go into an equipment project. So it's a bit complicated. The other thing that we could think of is collaboration. I keep telling people that it's not that everything is supposed to go to your club or to your community. And many times I keep encouraging the big clubs that have many of these projects, bring all these other clubs on board. you may find that you have a project, big money, big partners, but the people who best benefit from it are actually other clubs and other communities.
Very far
So
away.
collaboration is also another big thing. Yeah. Thank you.
Many thanks for that response.
Yes, thank you, Rotarian John, for asking that question. Actually, it was already in my mind. I was about to ask, and I think Doctor has already answered most of our questions. And I don't know if we can still forge a way forward on this or give it up. I think we need to conclude this and give feedback that as Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak, we've given it up so that those other friends don't hold us like we failed to get back to them.
We have, I think they have, we've more or less, I spoke with Israel and he said the community have said they were going to give it to the Kabaka Foundation because the foundation seemed to be in a state of readiness to receive the consignment. And they were it seemed they were ready to give the matching funds that were needed to start shipping the container. So I was hoping that Israel would have communicated to you and President Amanya, but if he hasn't, I think I want to let you know that the consignment has now gone to the Kabaka Foundation, which is a good thing because it means the things are still coming to Uganda. Maybe a loss to our club, but it's still a good thing because the things are going to end up in Uganda.
Yeah, thank you. The accolade all goes to you because you initiated the idea and you've made it possible. We may have lost as Kampala Daybreak, but as Uganda, we've achieved. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Fine, how are you? Oh, you know, Duke to zero. Where is the challenge?
Challenge Setrina team
Over to
you,
tujiwulira.
President, are you there?
Kamba gunja kuyambeko tutuze msimu na rekodi ukatava shukra.
Jole, you are online.
Let's end this Chimeza if there is no more business to discuss. But we'll always be grateful to Dr. Karungi and all of you entire friends of Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak for always being with us on Thursday's morning.
But President Jele was giving us business to discuss.
Oh, yes, please, go ahead. How are you, Rotarian Mish? We are happy to have you at Kampala Daybreak.
I'm well, thank you, President. How are you? I was saying that we seem to be picking something to discuss from Jole.
Oh, you are snooping into his conversation, into her conversation.
You, Mish, you have long ears. Leave Jolly alone. President,
how are you, Rotarian Mish?
I'm well, thank you. How are you, John?
You interrupted our
I'm
benefit.
very well.
Great. My boss, POP, good morning.
Mish, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
I like how the voice has calmed down.
I'm sick, you're here laughing at me. Okay.
What are laughing at you? How?
Dr. Kalungi, thank you so much for your presentation. It was still online. It was really good. Yeah. We shall be coming to you for tips.
By the way, President Amanya.
Yes, Mish.
I noticed Dr. Arakeke was introduced as the incoming president of Kampala South Toastmasters Club. He's actually the president.
Oh, thank you for that correction. I think they used an old information perhaps before he became the full president.
Yeah, he is the president effective 1st July.
Oh, thank you very much for that correction. How do we become Toastmasters? We would like to have it also as well at Kampala Daybreak.
Simply join us. Or come and listen in, and then you could see how to take it on. We meet fortnightly on Tuesdays.
Oh, okay.
Twice a month
BMK House?
at BMK House. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
I've heard.
thank you very much for that information, Dr.
Pleasure.
Good morning,
President
Uncle.
Jole Twaine. What up?
Cool.
Ebintu obifunye ku dduuka.
Good morning, the breakers.
Asonyiwe. Namba zintwala.
Nkitegeera. Lumba.
President Amanyo Lizegai.
President Dorothy, are you still on the Chimeza? IPP Dorothy.
President Amanya Guyara Zayaga Kuha by Dr. Rotarian Karunji. Yes, dear.
You were the person who managed to connect us to Rotarian May to give us a wheelchair for a 16-year-old girl. We eventually started calling her Dr. Rihanna because she had a dream to become a surgeon. And Dr. Rihanna sadly passed away last week.
Sorry, we saw
And,
the conversation.
So we were saddened, but I hope I'm not offloading on you Rotarians. Her pain touched me in a very, very profound way because she was only 16. She's a young person. And the Cancer Institute were suggesting to cut her leg off at the hip. Eventually, even that did not happen. And I was touched by how cancer attacks a child like that. And it's one of those mysteries of life. But Dr. Rihanna passed away and was buried in Buikwe last Saturday. And so I still feel very sad. IPP Dorothy.
Yeah, it's very sad. We received the news and we were really profoundly sad. And cancer, when you succumb, we pray to God that the pain has finally come to rest. We thank you for the intervention. At least you could have added some more days to her. Perhaps if it wasn't that, she would have passed on earlier. So we thank you for all the interventions you made.
Thank you, friends. Good day. We are closing the room.